is it just a fantasy? 'Cause the unknown's pulling me. We could leave this place, freedom was to chase.
Morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me?
Recording in progress.
Am I audible? Give me a thumbs up if I'm audible and you can
Good
hear me.
morning.
All right. Awesome. Good morning, guys. My name is Emeka Onuba, and I'm honored to be the trainer this morning. Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling pretty good, EBC Club, right? If you're grateful to be alive amongst the lucky, those who woke up this morning to be able to pursue their dreams alive and well, all right? Let's understand that we cannot take that for granted, and our attitude has got to be that of gratitude, okay, at all times. I learned a long time ago that an attitude of gratitude will allow you to do two things. An attitude of gratitude coupled with action, okay, will allow you to do two things. One, overcome fear. Two, pull your blessings towards you. So you being here this morning, showing up this morning to participate in this call already tells me a lot about you, that you are not stuck in inertia, in a stationary place, but you're willing to take action and move forward. All right, so welcome to the call. Today is Technical Tuesday, and as such, we will be taking on a little bit more advanced ideas, doing maybe deeper dives into certain things like illustrations or some of the solutions that we offer, or even ideas for executing our system, right? Our GX program and the system that we have in place. So today I'm excited for us to kind of pick up on something that we touched on a couple of weeks ago, and that was business solutions. Okay, we talked about executive bonus plans a couple of weeks ago and talked about it as a compensation strategy. Today we'll be building on that. But before we do, I do want to find out, based on yesterday's training, right? And starting the new week, if anybody will take one or two people who've already implemented any of the ideas that you've learned so far to get a result. You're able to get some kind of result yesterday, leveraging the ideas that you've learned so far. Can anybody share with us? We'll just take the first two very quickly because we do have limited time today. We have the webinar today, and we want to be able to finish in time, take some Q&A, and be able to get to our offices or get to our seats for the webinar, okay? So we'll take the first two people who want to share any results from yesterday. We want to hear from you. Check the chat, make sure everything is good here. Nobody's trying to get my attention with something, okay? Nobody? Really? I find that hard to believe. Or you guys are too shy. Michael, can you hear me? Michael Ojo. Can you hear me, brother?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Okay, you hear me? All right.
Yeah, well, I'll hear you.
Okay, we're all good then. Okay, well, that leaves us more time then for the subject matter, okay? I just want to remind everybody, the whole idea of this EBC club is for us to acquire the knowledge needed to help us sharpen our saw and then go do, okay? Knowledge plus action, okay? Let's not be professional learners and professional meeting attendees. It doesn't mean there's anything bad or wrong with that, but the premise, the whole idea is for us to take the knowledge that we get here daily, all right, execute so we can get results to help us ultimately hit GX and build GXs, okay, GXers. That's the whole idea behind the EBC Club. It's not just to congregate because we have nothing to do every morning, but to kind of compress time and speed up this duplication process. So I want us to start taking stock of how we're attending this meeting. One, when we attend, what do we do afterwards with the information that we get right away, within minutes or hours of getting the information? Two, how many of our team members are actually plugging in here so that we are learning together and flying information? Okay, so you're creating duplication in your base shop or in your team. Start paying attention to that and not just lethargically logging on to the call and trying to see who will wow you that morning with some new information that you didn't know. That's not the whole idea here. All right. So hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. We sharpen our saw. Enough exposure will bring experience. With that experience brings knowledge. And with knowledge, you start to develop a certain kind of sixth sense about what you're doing here. You just start getting better. And as you get better, it builds your confidence. The moment you add discipline and focus to that whole process, you become unstoppable. The sky is the limit. So I hope that as we are joining, we're listening, we're participating, let's be proactive and not reactive when it comes to these meetings. All right? Because what we have here is a group of future EVCs. Coach is looking for 1,000 who will lead 1,000. I believe those 1,000, at least the part of those 1,000 are right here on this call. That's what I believe. I hope you believe that. Doesn't serve you to believe anything else. All right? So with that, let's jump right in, okay? Let's talk about executive bonus plans. Let's talk about another way to help businesses implement solutions that can help protect, and protect the business's interests. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'd love for you to tell me when you see my screen. All right, so let's go screen 3. Share. Okay. All right. And
Yes, we see
I
it.
see it.
you see it? Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So let me pull that back up again. All right. So let's talk about a strategy, a business solution called key person insurance. All right. Also known as key employee, key man, key person. All right, we're going to talk about what it is, how it works, okay, how it's used, and we'll look at some differences, because what I found in my years of doing this is that people tend to use key employee and executive bonus interchangeably. And while they are both business solutions, there are actually pretty big differences in how they are utilized. Okay, so we'll go through that exercise today, time permitting. All right, so let's look at Nationwide's brochure. Remember, there's nothing special about any of the product providers. Chances are all of them have their own version of these brochures, strategies, documentation. So when I use one versus another, it's not because of a certain preference, it's just really more convenience. Okay. Last time I showed you guys how to navigate through the Transamerica agent portal to get to their version of the brochures and stuff. So find what works for you and use that accordingly. All right. But today we're going to talk about protecting your company with key person insurance. Let's look at what the brochure says. It says here that every company has that one person. It could be more than one, but that one person, that star, if you will, who really drives profitability. And your star could be an amazing salesperson or the brains behind the whole operation. They could even be a CEO, somebody, right? But how would your company adjust if your star talent passed away? And that's where key person insurance can help make that transition easier. Okay. So key person is about protecting the interests of the business. All right. You contrast that with executive bonus, which is a strategy to compensate said person. Okay. To compensate, to attract, retain, and reward those key people. That's for their benefit. All right. But for the business's benefit, key employee is all about protecting the interests and the survival of the business. Okay, so let's look at what it says here in terms of how it works. Okay, without key people, the most wonderful concepts, The finest products and the greatest ideas may never see the light of day. The loss of a key person can cripple a company, but a key person insurance plan can help you protect your business against this loss. So how does it work? Okay, well, the business, okay, let me use my, okay, I don't see an annotation here. All right, that's fine. Just follow my mouse. With this plan, the business purchases life insurance on the key employee and pays the premiums, okay? So let's use Gowrie, okay? Gowrie last time I used Chloe, so this time I'll use Gowrie. Gowrie owns this business, and she considers me a vital part of her enterprise, a key person, if you will. So, with my consent, after having a conversation with me, validating me here, obviously compensating me, hopefully the right way, they talked to me and they gained my consent for opening up a plan like this one, okay? Because without my consent, they cannot receive those, can't open it and receive the proceeds tax-free. So with that said, Gowrie opens up this plan, all right? So that she owns the plan. I'm the insured, okay? She owns the plan. She's paying, the business is paying for the plan, and also her business is the beneficiary of the plan, all right? And we'll look at how that differs from executive bonus. So let me say that again. Gowrie's company, okay? Let's call it GFS, Gowrie's Financial Services, okay? That business pays, so they pay the premiums for me, or pay the premiums on the plan. I'm the insured, okay? GFS is the payor. GFS is the beneficiary, okay, of the proceeds, of any proceeds of the plan, all right? What's the last thing here? Payor owner, and they are also the owner. That's the third component. So they pay for it, they own the plan, and they're the beneficiaries, the recipients of any benefits. All right. So in the event of my death, this key employee's death, GFS, Gowrie's company, the business receives the death benefit, not my family, not my wife, not my kids, not my people. GFS receives the policy's death benefit to help recover lost income or to help recruit and train a replacement. Okay? So visually, this is the schematic right here. There's the business paying the premiums as the payor to the insurance company. All right. And this could technically be done, from a cost-effective perspective, this could be done with a term policy. It doesn't have to be done with a permanent policy. Let's table that because we will look at how that differs from executive bonus, right? But it can be done with a term policy where as you guys already know about term, cost-effective premiums, be able to get a large size or nice size death benefit, right, that protects the business's interest. So they pay the premiums, and this is a policy on this key person, aka me. In the event of my death or disability, the insurance company will pay those benefits, the death benefits or any living benefits, to the business because the key employee plan is there to protect the business. So let's look at some of those benefits, all right, to the business. One, tax-free policy proceeds cover financial losses that may occur at my death, okay? So that way, Gowrie is able to go out and, if they receive 2, 3, 4 million, whatever that number is, they're able to use that now to kind of stay afloat as they find another person to be able to replace me. They probably won't find another guy as good as me, but I'm just kidding, all right? But it gives them a shot, all right, to do that. Assurance of business continuity for other employees, customers, and creditors, okay? So it provides kind of like investor confidence, lender confidence. If they're under any loan obligations, they have obligations to creditors or investors, it brings some confidence in knowing that the business can still stay afloat. It has the necessary cash flow or cash to continue to run the business. All right. Now, this is another good one. Coverage is a business asset that enhances the business's credit worthiness for commercial borrowing. Okay. So having a plan like this in place, Gowrie can leverage that to go and seek additional access to money by way of a loan or something like that. It demonstrates credit worthiness, that she won't be able to default, that whoever is her key person, in the event of a loss of that key person, the business will still be able to run and still fulfill its obligations to the lender. Okay, if she was looking to borrow money for commercial purposes. The key person's value to your business is affirmed, strengthening the existing relationship and aiding in retention. Okay. And that is why what you typically see, not all the time, but key employee as a plan to protect the business is usually complemented with an executive bonus plan as a compensation to reward the employee, okay, to retain the employee, to instill some form of confidence or even golden handcuffs on the employee. So you tend to see them as synergistic strategies, if you will, right? Executive bonus to compensate the employee, key employee to protect the business. All right. We'll look at this in more detail shortly. All right. The policy's cash value may be available to your business through a withdrawal or a loan if needed for business opportunities or retirement benefits. And that's what begs the question, should you use a term policy or should you use a permanent policy, right? Term, if we're just looking for the cheapest, most cost-effective way to establish this solution, you could do it with term, you know. But if the business has the means, has the cash flow, is profitable, and sees the value in establishing this through a permanent plan, it opens up all of the doors of opportunity, as you guys all know, right? That IULs can provide, which include access to the cash by the business to use as needed, all right, for whatever they want to do with that money. All right. So that's a big one. That's a big deal. Okay. So the rest of the brochure goes in and kind of gives like a case study and some disclaimers and then other business solutions. All right. So let's run this one more time and then let's look at some differences together. And time permitting, we can just run an illustration, a basic IUL illustration, and then we'll take some Q&A. All right. So let's do this. All right, let me make sure this is screen 3. Launch that. All right, so one more time, okay? Here are the considerations. How do I ensure that my business continues to thrive if I lose a key employee? This is the question that Gowrie is thinking about at night, right? If Emeka leaves this company, what happens, right? Because he's accounting for probably 40, 50, or 60% of the revenue that's being generated for the firm. So employee replacement costs can be as high as 50 to 60%, with overall costs ranging anywhere from 90 to 200%. Ouch. That's a lot of money, again, at least for traditional businesses out there, right? So we already looked at this. Business is the payor, owner, and the beneficiary of the policy. And as a result, guys, consequently, they don't enjoy a tax write-off, okay? They don't enjoy a tax write-off of the premiums that they pay because they own and they are the beneficiary. Okay. When you contrast that with executive bonus plans, the business enjoys a tax write-off because the incentive or the benefit is for the employee, not the business. Okay. So one more time, business is the payor, the owner, and the beneficiary of the policy, and consequently cannot enjoy or does not enjoy a tax deduction or tax write-off of those policy premiums. But they do receive any payouts as a tax-free benefit, whether the key employee passes away or if it was there was some kind of chronic illness rider or a living benefits rider. Even though the insured is the person who may put in the claim, the business actually receives those benefit proceeds, okay? Because benefit payouts are paid to the owner and not the insured of a policy. The reason why the insured receives it in a typical plan, a general plan, an IUL that you and I write every day and we do the 4 boxes for, is because usually the insured is also the owner. So when the insured files a claim for a living benefit of some kind, because they are both the insured and the owner, without even thinking, without even paying any attention to it, those benefits are paid to our client. But when you're working on a key employee plan, you need to be careful. This can get a little sticky. The business owns the plan. The employee is the insured. So if you happen to add, or if there's some kind of rider added for like living benefits, long-term care and such, while the insured may get sick or something and file a claim, the insured in this case is not the owner. The owner is the business. So those proceeds and those payouts are paid to the business. So in this case, I filed a claim because I'm going through a living an experience. Gowrie receives the benefits. And now it's really up to Gowrie now to say, hey, I will redirect those proceeds to Emeka to help him get well, whatever, so he can get back to work and continue to help me run the business. But she's not under any obligation to do so. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll come back to some Q&A after that. Okay, so how it works. We already looked at this. Business pays the premium, and when they die, business receives the proceeds. Okay, and we talked about some of the so uses one more time, and then let's look at differences. Okay, for covering lost revenue and profits, paying for the cost of recruiting and training a replacement, keeping the business afloat during the transition period, okay, maintaining investor confidence, paying off business debt or other shutdown costs, buying out a partner's share from their heirs, okay, or utilizing the cash value accordingly if a permanent plan is utilized, okay? So let's look at some differences here, and then we can jump into some Q&A. All right, so let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And I didn't have time, guys. My apologies. I was rushing this morning, so I didn't get a chance to put this all together, but I will type it out and we'll look at it in real time, okay? So differences, all right? With a key employee, this is more about a role. Let me do this. Center that, okay? This is more about a role or position, all right? Whereas an executive bonus is more of a compensation strategy, okay? The focus is more of the individual, right? It's more for the business. The focus is more to protect the business in the event of the loss of the key employee, or of a key employee, okay? Of a key employee. Whereas with executive bonus, the focus is really more of it's a method, if you will, right? A strategy, if you will, of reward, of, first of all, attracting, rewarding, and retaining, right? That key employee, all right? Make this a little bit smaller. Hopefully you guys are following along. Okay. So here, this is more about protecting the business, and here, this is more for the employee. So I can write here, more for the business, if you will. And this is more for the employee. And I mean, to an extent, it's for the business. If the employee is happy, the business is also happy. So kind of, sort of, right? Let's see here. Who are some of those key employees? People like CEOs, salesperson, even the owner of the business, right? How about application, right? Typically, this could be done with term or permanent. life insurance plans. With executive bonus, it's almost always done with permanent life insurance plans, okay? But with key employee, it could use term if you want it to be just inexpensive, cheap for the business, or it can be done with permanent to give them more leverage, more control, more access, more flexibility. There is no tax deduction, no tax deduction for business, no tax deduction of premiums. Of any portion of those premiums for the business. Here, tax deductions exist. Tax deductions exist for the business because they are the payor, okay? And last thing here, with the key employee, business is payor. Actually, the difference is business is owner and beneficiary, okay? Whereas in an executive bonus plan, employee is owner and beneficiary, okay? What's common between the two is that the business pays, in both scenarios, business usually is paying for it directly or indirectly, right? And the employee is the insured in both cases. So the similarity is that in both cases, business is paying for this. The employee is the insured, is the owner and his family, okay? And his and whoever owns the policy is in control of the usage of the policy, okay? In terms of the financial values of the policy, control, payouts, things like that, the owner has the control. So with an executive bonus, that's how that works. With key employee, the business is, okay? So these are the key. Can anybody think of any other differences? Anybody who's on the call who wants to offer some thought on this and can think of any other differences that I may be overlooking here? One last thing, and then let's jump into Q&A, and maybe we can end today's call early. So if I go here, I'm going to go nationwide just because it's right there. I have the client version. With Transamerica, I have to log in, and I haven't downloaded the client version of the app. Okay, so I see Michael Ojo has his hand up, so we'll come to you in a second, Michael, and I think there's also some stuff in the chat. But just to show you, in the event that, let's say you're putting together a proposal, generally speaking, I don't send illustrations out, but if you ever had to and you wanted it to look professional, right? Let's just say this IUL accumulator, we're doing this for in text. First of all, we can change this, okay? And we can change the concept to can we do key? Buy, sell, charitable, wealth, estate, executive bonus? Well, I guess because the key employee is basically the same thing as an insurance-based, this regular IUL. So you can just use a regular ledger, right? And run it, okay? And run, if you're running a term, you can run a term and show them what that looks like. If you're running an IUL, you can run it using the just a regular ledger report, because again, it's just like any other IUL, except that the owner is the business, the beneficiary will be the business, and the insured is the key employee. All right. So I'm going to pause here, going to stop here, and let's use the rest of the time maybe to do some Q&A. We're not going to, everybody here should know how to run an illustration. If you don't know how to run an illustration, then you need to work with your trainer, all right, on how to run one, and then get in the field. Most importantly, you get in the field and you have a pending solution to write for your client, I promise you that you will learn how to run an illustration. There are just a few things while we're on here that just crossed my mind. I don't mean to digress, but just some things that you can utilize when you're doing these illustrations that I found that some people don't realize are available here, and they can make your time, make you more efficient, and have you, give you more control over running illustrations look like, right? So whether it's Transamerica or nationwide, it doesn't here add your information, okay? So if you say new, for example, just something for you to know, you can have your name, your information here, so that when you have to, in a situation where you're being tasked with sending an illustration, again, something I typically don't do, but if you absolutely must, all right, you could, in configuring that, and you run an illustration and print out a PDF, it can have your info on there to send, all right? It makes you look pretty good. Another thing that people don't realize is that you can have more control over some of these fields by using these icons next to them, all right? For example, if I want to have more control over the premium, how I pay the premium, instead of just typing in a dollar amount here, $5,000 or whatever, I could come here and actually, by clicking on this little calendar icon, I can have more control. I can say, you know what, in the first couple of years, I just want to do the target, okay, from year 1 through year 5, okay, and then from year 6, I want to be able to pay the level, right, from year 6 through and if you don't know how to calculate the years, you can actually just say the age. I want to do this from year 6 through age 65, for example. This is another way that you can have more control over the illustration. Okay, so using these little things, for example, you can even put a dollar amount. You can say, okay, from year 6 through year 10, I'm going to do the level, or I'm going to do I'll do the level, and then I'm going to do a lump sum. I'm going to make up loss contributions of, I don't know, $100,000, 100K. I'm just throwing out, just making up stuff, okay? 100K. I'm going to do that in year 15, okay, is what I will do. So when you do that and you run the illustration, it will actually show you those premium entries the way that you just did. So just for kicks, if I have a 45-year-old here, and if I make this a big enough death benefit, let's just say $500,000, let's say a million, okay, we'll have that million max, okay. You have more control. If I want this death benefit to be level the whole time, then I just leave it this way. But if I want the death benefit if I want to modify the death benefit, I can say, okay, you know what, it's going to be increasing until this guy says age 65, okay, and it's going to be level, all right, from age 66 to max, okay. So again, you don't have to do this. But if you needed to do this, if you needed to have more control over how you want the illustration to look, scenarios you want to illustrate for, how you do that is using these calendar icons. That's what I'm trying to help you understand, all right? Not that you must do it this way, okay? Interest rate, income, again, these things here on the side allow you more control. If I clicked here, then I could actually put percentages across the different crediting strategies, okay? Or I can use one of the defaults that's already here, all right? As an example, riders, right? You can check off a rider as needed, okay? And then even the output design, you could indeed customize what you want to the system to spit out when it runs a report, okay? So if you want to see like an annual cost summary, for example, or any other report you want to see here, as part of the output. You can do that. So I encourage you to play around with this at your and in your non-prime time, okay? That dead time that you would be tempted to go binge watch a show, don't go binge watch that show at 11, 12 at night and stay up till 4 in the morning. Instead, jump on your computer and play with this thing, all right? I promise you won't break it and you will learn, okay? But just as an example, let me run this and see what happens to see if it illustrates what I just did. And then we can go into the Q&A. It's thinking. While it's thinking, Michael Ojo, you still there? I think you had your hand up, brother. Did you have a question? Okay, so kind of see what happened here. Just in me kind of playing around with the software, I told it, you know what? Use the target premium from years 1 through 5. So the target premium was $20,000 a year. All right. So because that was the instruction I gave it, that's what it did. 20,000 year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I told it to use the guideline level the next 5 years from years 6 through 10. So what did it do? It used the guideline level. Okay. Those next couple of years. All right. 61,409. And after I said you're in year 15, I to make up some of the lost contributions, right? So year 15, what happened? $100,000 is in here. So all I'm trying to demonstrate, don't get confused, overwhelmed. All I'm trying to say is when you work with the illustration software, okay, you have the ability to make it do other things based on what you're trying to demonstrate or figure out or see if it's even possible. You don't have to be at the mercy all the time of your trainer or the product providers themselves. Even though they're great resources, you can actually call up Transamerica, call up Nationwide, tell them exactly what you're trying to get done, and they'll run the illustration for you. But sometimes you're discovering the need to do this after hours or on a weekend. You don't need to be at their mercy is all I'm saying. You can use the software if you're willing to invest some time. The other last thing here, another thing that people don't typically know is that you can add a plan, okay? You can, in trying to look at 2 different scenarios, you can add a plan. Let's say I did this and I'm curious, what will it look like if we only did $500,000 for this client? I don't have to save and go open up a whole new one and save a whole new deal. I can just say, you know what? Add plan, copy of the current plan, or add plan, new plan, whatever I want to do. And I can keep these scenarios as a group, save them as one grouping. So if I say add plan, copy of the current plan, I can call this plan 2 for 500K because that's the scenario I want to play around with. Notice what it did. Now it added a second line. I had my first line here. It's added a second line with the name I just gave it. I can even rename them, okay? I can delete the plan, rename the plan. I can rename plan 1 now and say, you know what? So I don't get confused. I'm renaming this one to plan 1, 1 million, 1M, okay? Bam. And now I have both side by side. I can now come to this one I just created, and now all I want to do is I just want to change it to 500K. So I come here and I did it to 500,000 as an example. Hit OK. And now when I calculate, I have the results of both illustrations side by side. And it allows me to see things very quickly, compare them very quickly, because my 1 million, the initial was 20, but here for the $500,000 is 10, right? I can see the amounts accumulated at age 65, at age 85, at age 100, right? It's right there. I can add additional plans as needed, additional scenarios. I can save all of this as one profile, if you will. So typically when I'm running an illustration for a family, husband, wife, two kids, I do it this way. Line one may be for the husband, line two for the wife, lines 3 and 4 for each of the kids, and I have everything in one place so that when we're going through it, it's easy to transition from uh, insured to insured, or scenario to scenario, and all of that. Just didn't mean to digress, just thought, just nice quick tips that could help you as part of, again, you sharpening your saw and getting better at what you do. Now, with that said, let's get into some Q&A. I see Michael doesn't have his hand up anyway, but Godfrey does. So Godfrey, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Before you ask that, quick question. Everybody, was this good, bad? Was it helpful? Was it clear? Making sense?
It was great.
Fantastic.
Okay. All right,
Emeka.
just
clear.
checking. You guys are awfully quiet. You're making me a little nervous. So, all right,
No, it was
Godfrey,
good.
go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Emeka, for this wonderful training. My question is, you said with key employee, it's the business that owns the policy, and it takes all the proceeds. So when it comes to long-term care, how is that handled? Because you said all the proceeds go to the business and the benefit.
Yeah. That's one of those sticky ones right there. It's it can be a cause for, some issues or drama sometimes, but the legally, the answer to your question is, it's from a legal standpoint, the payouts. Let's say this client, let's say Gowrie opened this plan with me as the insured, and I trigger a long-term care event. The proceeds actually go to Gowrie. Okay, they're paid out. The long-term care benefits get paid out to the owner of the policy, in this case, Gowrie. Now, Gowrie can, and if I were Gowrie would say, hey, if I can help Emeka get back quickly, get back to work, if I can do whatever I can to help this key guy, which was the whole point of me getting the policy anyways, maybe I can redirect some of those proceeds, because it's up to Gowrie to do with it the payout, the lump sum payout or whatever as needed, right? If and when it does get paid out. But it's up to Gowrie now to say that she could maybe redirect some of those proceeds for me to utilize. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with Christy Flynn from Nationwide, and they had a situation like this pop up a year or two ago. It was a key employee plan, and the insured got sick, and they had to pay the benefits out to the employer, but they were able to work it out behind the scenes so that those proceeds could be used by the employee, those benefits, accordingly. But to answer your question, legally, if the payouts do occur, they go to the business as the owner of the policy, as opposed to contrast that with an executive bonus plan or any other IUL where I am the insured, consequently, I am the owner. If I trigger an event and I'm eligible for a payout, those payouts come to the owner, AKA me, okay, in that scenario, all right? So that's the key. The key is that the payouts get paid to the owner, and whoever is the owner is who receives the proceeds. I hope that makes sense, Godfrey.
A
You look
little.
puzzled.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the person who needs the long-term care benefit is the employee.
Sure.
And I mean, the company doesn't need the long-term care, but the company needs the employee to get back to the job.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that when the employee bounces back, he can actually come back and work on the job. So I'm still puzzled there. Why would the LTC benefits go to the business?
Yeah, it goes to the owner because that was what the policy was for. A key employee plan was always, the premise for the key employee plan was to protect the interests of the business. If we're looking to protect the interests of the employee, then we use a different strategy for that, right? And designate it as such. But when you're protecting the interests of the business, that's why even the death benefit, doesn't go to the employee's family. You can make an argument that, well, if I'm the key employee for Gowrie and I pass away, why aren't the proceeds also somehow shared with my wife and kids who are, no, it's for the business, okay? The whole entire premise for the existence of a strategy like this is to protect the interests of the business. And that's why the business pays for it 100%, has full control and discretion as to what type of plan they want, what features and benefits they want in the plan, because when I pass away, those proceeds go to the business, Godfrey, okay? So that's why it's called a
Okay.
key, it's different from a regular IUL or regular.
So in this case, if the business owner is considerate enough, he can give some of the the proceeds of for LTC benefits to the insured so that he can probably get back soon.
At their discretion, that is correct. I see my brother raise his hand up. Rogers, join this conversation if you wanted to offer some input here.
Yeah, yes, Brother Emeka, thank you for this wonderful training for the team. I just want to maybe add something that the questions that my brother, was that Simon?
Godfrey.
Godfrey is asking are crucial. But as a financial professional, when you're engaging with a business owner, it is very crucial for you to help them maybe structure something. If they are opening up a key person, you may want alongside the key person to encourage them to do an executive bonus plan.
There you go.
And because the key person is for the employer, of course, the employee has to consent to that strategy. Sure. Now, as a reward to the employee, the key person can, alongside that, utilize an executive bonus plan so that the employee feels compensated. In fact, when that event occurs, the employee has no problem but to utilize their own executive bonus plan.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Exactly. Thank you, Rogers. I wanted to address the question first and then talk about the remedy, which you have just eloquently done. And that's what I said earlier, guys, that they tend to act as complementary solutions when being implemented. The executive bonus is a compensation strategy to attract, retain, and reward the employee, especially when things like this happen. But the executive bonus plan is to protect the business. And what I've seen done typically is that they will use an IUL to do the executive bonus plan for the employee, and then they will use a term to protect the business, okay? Because it's cheap, it's just to protect the business, all right? So hopefully that helps you, Godfrey, all right? It's not something that's unfair, unethical, illegal, or inconsiderate. It's just the parameters and the definition of the strategies. That's how they work, okay?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Rogers.
Excellent, excellent. Miss Bridget, morning, my sister.
Good morning. Good morning. Excellent information. Great. I think Rogers just said what I was going to just add, because I know if the key employee is not the owner, the employee has to consent, has to agree. It's not automatic, So thank you so much. That was powerful.
You're welcome. And that's what I also said earlier on, is that with the consent of the employee, that's when a plan like this can be put in place. And that's when even the death benefits can be received tax-free. Okay. Thank you for that contribution. Miss Fumi, how are you?
Very well. Good morning, sir.
Yes,
and thank you for the training and the tips that you gave on running the illustration. It was just an eye-opener. Thank you very much. Here's my question. I know somebody already put it in the chat. It says, what happens when the employee quits and they didn't die, but they just quit the business? That's one. And secondly, I wanted to know, the way you transition term to permanent, is that also possible with the key employee plan? And the taxes, you said the company will not get tax rebates if they...
Yes, no tax deductions for those premiums.
But for the executive bonus, the employer would pay like the additional part so that they can get the taxes that would have been, that the employee would have paid. So that takes care of that.
Okay, let me answer the tax part. Rogers, I'd love for you to address maybe the other questions since I see you on my screen. The tax part is simple, guys. Usually, whenever there's a benefit, a tax benefit, is because somebody is fulfilling. I like to use a rule of thumb in my mind. Somebody is alleviating a burden to, in fact, let me not even go there. All right. Simply put, Miss Fumi, with the key person, remember, the business is the one receiving. It's for the businesses. It's from the business's perspective. They're receiving all of the advantages. So they're paying for it. They control it. They receive the death benefit. Consequently, there's no tax deduction of those premiums or those contributions for the business. On the flip side, with an executive bonus arrangement, it's additional compensation for the employee. Okay. So the business always receives a tax deduction for payroll and things like that. So additional compensation for the employee is a tax deduction for the business. But the employee, their income just went up. When Gowrie gives me, or Chloe in the previous example, gives me a $30,000 bonus and funds an IUL, it's additional compensation. She receives the deductions as a business. My income went up by $30,000. There's a tax liability there that she can choose to cover as a double bonus or not. Okay, so that addresses the tax part. Okay, business enjoys a tax deduction with an executive bonus arrangement because it's purely a form of additional compensation to retain me and to keep me in the golden handcuffs. Executive bonus is purely, I mean, a key employee is for the benefit of the business. Okay, so they don't enjoy a tax write-off. Rogers, what say D about the first two?
Can they reiterate? I think I missed those.
The first one is what happens when the employee quits and he didn't die. And the second one is just the way you transition terms into permanent. Can they transition the key employee if they started with a term? Thank you.
So like Brother Emeka just mentioned, the employer can, of course, an executive bonus plan is an incentive. Predominantly, employers may use it as an incentive to keep and retain a key, retain an employee, a key employee, or a very relevant person that they want to keep. And of course, if there are concerns that this person could leave, they could utilize what Brother Emeka just mentioned, the golden handcuffs, where if they do not fulfill what the employer's intention is, then they forfeit the benefits. Okay, if this employee at the end of the day chooses to leave, because the employer may say, and maybe, or you could design it, the employer could suggest, I want this employee to stay with me. If they stay with me for the next 10 years or 20 years, then they get to keep everything. Of course, if that employee chooses not to, then they did not honor. That is the purpose of the golden handcuffs, to lock in that person. It is a relevant way to make sure they keep the person, because that, after all, that was the intention, to keep them. And of course, is it a convertible strategy? Of course, you can convert a term into a permanent, as long as you have to be very mindful about how a particular company you're working with works with conversion options. But of course, if it is permissible for most companies we work with, there is an opportunity or a possibility to convert a term into a permanent policy. So in the event that that is applicable, yes, you can convert it, regardless whether it's a business strategy or it's a personal or an individual policy.
And to add to that, Rogers, if I may,
Yes.
if a person, let's say a company, let's say Gowrie opened a term policy with my consent for key employee, right, for her, but to protect her business, and I quit, I walk away. Well, she reserves the right to keep, if she feels that, what, the business can continue to fund that term and keep it in force, she could, or she could terminate it. It's a term, right? There's no cash or anything. If it's a permanent plan, she could have, again, it's at their discretion because they own, they control, they're paying for it and all. So if I walk away, that's on me. If I already gave the consent at the very beginning for those plans to be established, it's at their discretion what they want to do with that plan moving forward if I leave the business and I walk away.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully the answers that we've just provided to you make sense.
Hey,
And
Emeka,
Go ahead, Rogers.
let me just
Oh,
throw
I'm sorry.
my own
But
little
on the
2 cents
ultimate,
here.
yes.
On the
Yes,
light
sir.
of what Roger was saying, is not only the time that you be there, you can even tie it to performance. Say the business get a 10% growth for the next 5 years or 10 years, then you get full benefit for the executive bonus plan. So you can tie it like that. There's option for that. And if the person leave before that time, they always can go pay for it themselves because they own it. But you can
That's
tie it
correct.
to performance for them to get a full benefit.
That is correct. That
Yeah.
is correct. It's already 10:57, guys. Ona Maria, I know your hand is up, and Miriam, I just don't know. Okay, let's do it real quick because we got to get on the webinar. What was your
Okay,
question?
so my question real quick is that I heard you say that both of those, both the key employee and the executive bonus plan is paid by the employer. So this is not one of those things where you position the key employee for the employer and then ask permission to speak to the employees so that they can pick. This is one of those that you're enrolling the employer to pick both for the employee. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
So, in general, you could go into the employer and make sure that they have the protection they need for that key person. And then would we be asking them, can we speak to the employees so that the employees can select for these that they own? Or is that something that we're asking the owner, the business owner, to get both for the employee? I'm just trying to figure out who are we asking
Yeah,
because
you
the
are.
employee is the owner, but the employer is the payer. And so
You're-
that's one.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Your point of contact initially initiating any of these conversations, first of all, make sure you're working with a trainer when you're new to this,
Of
because
course.
this is again, this advanced application and usage. You don't want to do it wrong. That's one. Two, the initial point of contact is the decision maker or decision makers.
Mhm.
That's where you're starting because they're the ones who know the value of the business, the impact of the employees, who are those key employees and all of that, right? That's where you start before you even start engaging, getting into the nitty gritty of it all. Okay. Decision makers first, and then together it may make sense to pull in those key employees to be part of the conversation after the fact. But as part of the fact finding and all, you're starting with business owners or decision makers. Okay.
Okay, got it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Hey, Emeka, I
Yes,
know there are
sir.
still more hands off. We'll visit this topic on December 2nd. We'll spend a little time on it and then move forward further. So if you have any
Excellent.
questions, hold on to it. We'll
What do you
visit
say?
again December 2nd.
This one's here.
That's a week
Okay.
from next Tuesday.
Oh, is that warm? Oh, yeah, because
And in the interim, get with your trainer after this call to come up with a list of businesses that you know, all right, and to come up with a game plan to approach those businesses to start having some of these conversations, okay? That's how you will really, really, really learn it for real. So December 2nd, you'll even have more questions when we address the topic December 2nd. Thank you all so much for your participation. I hope that this was helpful. And let's go wrap up GX, all right, in the remaining days that we have for November, okay? God bless you all.
Thank
See
you,
next
sir.
time.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, wonderful Emeka.
Thank you all.